God established America with a purpose in mind, to have the prophetic scenario of God's Word come to fulfillment. But the United States is not mentioned in Bible prophecy. Since America is not mentioned in Bible prophecy, we must ask a question. How does it disappear?
The Communist Party dissolved in Russia, but that effort to weaken America did not.
When I go and travel and speak, I ask the question, how many of you have heard that Islam is a religion of peace? Everybody raises their hand.
We are in the midst of a spiritual war. We only have one hope, and that is through Christ today.
The Lord used a principle that he laid out through the Apostle John in Revelation chapter 17, where he said, the Lord will put into the hearts and minds political leaders to make decisions that will set in place the prophetic scenario for the end times. Having established that the United States is not in Bible prophecy, we had to say, well, where is the United States, or how does it disappear? The first possibility of an internal threat could be insurrection, a violent uprising against authority or government.
The United States of America is unraveling for all the world to see as race riots leave many of the nation's biggest cities burning in almost unimaginable scenes.
In the summer of 2020, we had all of these riots and looting and burning after the George Floyd death. People have a constitutional right to demonstrate. They have a constitutional right to speak their opinion, their views, even if they're not popular and even if they're hateful. What we have today with Black Lives Matter and Antifa, as many politicians have said, this is not demonstrations. This is anarchy. And in fact, what many of them are involved in is treason.
These groups come in, they caused millions and millions of dollars worth of damage to property and to families that, quite frankly, are in neighborhoods that are struggling. You have the young people that are being, if you will, their minds are just being controlled by the media, by the schools, by the socialist agenda, which has been coming out. We used to be a very strong nationalist society, and now we're slowly moving away from that to where we're going to this big global concept. When we start to buy into the other philosophies, the other ways of government, socialism, Marxism, communism, that is starting to infiltrate America.
What they're trying to do is overthrow our government, our form of government, a constitutional republic based on the law of the divine, private property, private ownership, and move us to a Marxist or socialist system of big government where government is in charge of everything and government becomes the god of the people. And if we had an FBI that wasn't as corrupt as the people on the street, they would be prosecuting these people under the federal law. But sadly, now we have the CIA, the FBI, the DHS, many of these agencies themselves are involved in treason, subversion, lawlessness.
After 3 nights of protest and violence, the state of emergency in Los Angeles mirrored by pockets of anarchy nationwide, described as all hell breaking loose in Seattle when police lost control of downtown, crowds destroyed, then took over their vehicles. This video capturing one man removing a high-powered police rifle before a plainclothes security guard disarmed the man, clearing the magazine.
Many of these, quote, demonstrations, which is really, again, anarchy, they are not organic. They didn't just happen. They were orchestrated. You noticed what happened as we moved closer to the election. They all stopped. Almost simultaneously, they stopped. And they didn't even start back up after the election. This shows you there was a command and control of these demonstrators. And many of them, by the way, jump on planes and buses and cars and go from one city to the next. It's the same actors. How else do you have also pallets of bricks showing up all over the country?
This right here?
Yeah, they put them there
this the setup.
They put them there on purpose,
Y'all know
bro.
where we at.
They gonna set them on
right up on the rail.
Y'all know what building this is right here. I ain't even gonna say what name it is.
Hey, where do them bricks go to? Where do the bricks go to?
These pallets of bricks are just sitting there. Look at this.
What?
Yes.
They're just like riot supplies.
Exactly, riot supplies.
No justice! No peace!
Many of these demonstrators are professional demonstrators. We have their manuals. Many of their manuals are that of the Weather Underground from 1974, Prairie Fire. And Eric Mann, with the Weather Underground, involved in some multiple bombings in the 70s, along with Bill Ayers and others. Eric Mann mentored Patrice Cullors of Black Lives Matter for 10 years.
Racism is still the same, capitalism is still the same, sexism is still the same, and so what we've seen is the birth of a racial justice movement.
No justice, no peace!
There's a shadow existence to BLM that is run by people with a lot of money who are using it as a cover. BLM does not really recognize or talk about any form of government, but they are being funded and run by those people who believe if they can create enough chaos, socialism, communism, can erase democracy.
The criticism is helpful. We actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists.
Socialism or communism is never given up the fact that they wish to have their form of government rule. I would hope that the American people would wake up enough to participate in politics to say this is not right and this is not what we expect of our Congress. The American people, the people who want to have order and decency, I see them getting more fed up with those who would just randomly destroy property or to knock down the very bastion of what we call freedoms in this country. The old saying is, if you allow people to just brutally obliterate history, you're destined to repeat that history.
A lot of this is being fueled internationally by our enemies, trying to collapse America from within. They realized that they could not create a revolution by pitting economic groups against each other. Not that some haven't tried, but it's hard to do that in America when you can go from being poor, like Oprah Winfrey in Mississippi, and now she's a billionaire. So we can show a lot of Black Americans born in poverty become very wealthy. So instead of pitting people against each other over economics, what they started to do is pit each other over people groups. So now we're going to make everybody that's a Christian or a capitalist or embraces a Judeo-Christian worldview out to be a racist. What they have done is they have taken race and they have weaponized race. As Christians, we believe the Bible says in Acts that we are of one blood. There's only one race, the human race. Okay? There are many people groups, but only one race, the human race. Black lives matter. Of course they do. But if you say all lives matter, we're now supposedly being a racist. And who wants to be called a racist? So if you are for national sovereignty, borders, then what they'll say is, well, you want to keep brown people out.
The fact is, the women and children at the border are not a security threat. They are a humanitarian challenge, a challenge that President Trump's own cruel and counterproductive policies have only deepened.
These are basically lies, supported more than anything else by prejudice, namely racism and xenophobia.
So everything they do, they couch in race so that people will sit down and shut up. And that's how communism always takes over.
The American people know these names have to go. These names are white supremacists that said terrible things about our country. This is like over 100 years after World War II.
The majority have been intimidated into silence. And the only way to stop that is to fight back with the truth. Truth is the kryptonite to the brainwashing operation, the psychological warfare, the disinformation. People have to get where they don't care what's said about them. If you can't stand up to words and insults, how are you going to stand up to what's coming?
According to our experts, America could collapse through infiltration. And there are two major subversive threats to America, and that would be Russia and China. First, we'll look at Russia. Could Russia overthrow America?
Russia is the only country militarily somewhat on a par with America today. This is purely because the Russians have nuclear weapons. What we've seen is a steady advance of Russian influence in the Middle East. Now remember, if you go back to the 80s, Russia was there, right? Russia was in Syria, Russia was in Iraq, Russia was in Libya. They had allies all across the Middle East. Russia was in bed with all of those regimes that were opposing Israel and that were opposing the United States. But they lost that with the collapse of the Soviet Union. And over the past, I'd say, again, 5 to 6 years, they have been building back. The war in Syria has been tremendously important for Russia to test new military capabilities, which they have been doing steadily. We see weapons being deployed to Syria to put them on field trial, essentially. So Russia is using the Middle East to test its military, to develop new weapons and to test them, and to expand its political influence.
Eastern Europe is free. The Soviet Union itself is no more. This is a victory for democracy and freedom.
The Soviet Union collapsed, and the Russians, perhaps somewhat to their surprise, discovered that the captive peoples and the captive republics of the Soviet Empire didn't particularly like them. So they've had a hard time rebuilding any kind of Soviet empire. Look at the tension between Ukraine, their nearest neighbor, and Russia. So they've not been able to rebuild the Soviet empire, which is one reason why I don't think they will challenge the United States. They're too small, and their population is shrinking. It's aging and it's shrinking. And they do not have this enormous hinterland that they used to have. They don't have these buffer zones that they used to have. But what I think Putin is trying to do is to build back the Russian economy through arms sales and through natural resource sales, oil and gas in particular, and to re-cement political alliances in places like Syria, Egypt. He's moved into Egypt, surprisingly. Putin is a Slavophile. He is somebody who believes in a kind of Slavic empire. And it's never been the Chinese that threatened. That is always the Western European powers or the United States. Under Putin's authoritarian reign, they have spent $650 billion restoring and renewing their conventional military forces as well as their nuclear forces. So they have a military capability today to wage utter war against America should they choose. I just don't believe that Russia's leaders want to do that. They don't need to. They need America to become weaker than America is today. They need America's alliances to be frayed at the edges. They need America to doubt in its own power and its own legitimacy. And by the way, the Russians have been working at this, the Soviets have been working at this for 70 years. Their covert intelligence operations against us that began in the 20s were aimed at a long-term effort. It began as a Russian Communist Party effort to weaken America, to make Americans doubt their system, to make Americans doubt our freedoms, to make Americans doubt the legitimacy of our government. They infiltrated the school systems, first the universities, then the high schools, and then the primary schools. And we are seeing the results of it today in a whole generation of young people who've been brought up to reject America and the American ideal, who do not understand that the Constitution of the United States is the greatest document of freedom and governance ever written in the history of the world. They believe it's a document of oppression and of slavery. That was the KGB view, and unfortunately, it's become the view of the teachers' unions in the United States of America.